Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome everyone. Hi everyone. Becca Simons is on the call. She's famous and she's really good at donor relationships. So now I feel super anxious. Don't judge me too harsh, Becca. Welcome, folks. We'll give people a couple minutes to come in here before we get started. I don't know where everyone is located, but it is snowing here. Oh, actually, it looks like it just stopped, but in Pittsburgh, we've had a very snowy day, a very cold day. It's wintry. It feels like we should be wrapped in blankets and sipping hot cocoa. So I hope everyone on this call is warm and has a blanket and a warm drink if they want one. Welcome, everyone. As you come in, if you can drop your name and the organization you're with and maybe where you are in the country or world into the chat. Alberta. Yeah, I bet it's snowing in Alberta. We don't have anything like Canadian snow here. Chicago. Hi, Chicago. Welcome, folks. We'll give folks a couple minutes to come in. This is called the ADHD introduction for those of us that have to search for the link every single time. Welcome. Drop your name and org in the chat as you come in. Oh, Orlando, Florida. I'm jealous right now. Sunny Colorado. Okay. I do enjoy the snow, but uh, there's something very nice about January warm weather and sunshine. Hi, Jamie from Rolling Harvest. I was just down your way last weekend. Welcome, folks. Vale, I hope you guys have snow. I bet you do. All right. No snow, but cocoa and blanket time. Yeah, cocoa and blankets are always a good idea unless it's really, really super hot. I will, Jamie. All right. Well, we will go ahead and get started as folks are dropping in their information. So we're going to talk today a little bit about building bridges, strengthening food donor relationships. And we're really going to start with, we're going to focus on how you can, from the jump, build those strong donor relationships that will help create a long, fruitful, and good relationship with your donors. So if you can advance, Sedona. A few reminders, if you've got questions, don't put them in the chat. It goes too fast. I don't see it. Even with Sedona helpfully looking at the chat, we'll probably miss it. So there's a Q&A button below. If you have a question as we go, put it in there and we'll answer it at the end. This is being recorded. We will send this out afterwards, as we always do. It will be available to view. So if you miss something or want to go back and watch, you can. And at the end of the webinar, we will drop links to request a follow-up meeting and maybe to register for our next webinar. Sedona, if you have time to track that down while we're doing this, can you do that? Because I don't think I have the link. So That's a gorilla. That's a 900-pound gorilla. What is the 900-pound gorilla? The 900-pound gorilla in the room is the fact that a lot of times when you approach donors, you hear they have exclusivity agreements or that you hear that they won't work with you. We have all run into this, right? We've all come up against the juggernaut of, Feeding America relationships where they say that they can't work with us. Um, those, and in some cases, there's just no getting around that, right? But those things are weakening, right? Those exclusivity agreements are starting to crack, especially when you have places like California, SB 1383, where donors are recognizing that they actually need to work with a lot of organizations to get their food recovery needs met. So while this gorilla is still hanging around, I think we can start to talk about how you can build a donor program that will really appeal to some of those donors that are starting to look around and broaden who they're working with. So our team recently read our ops team recently read this book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And I love this. This is kind of the attitude that we have all along fostered and brought to our operations and our program. So, we like to think about or start with a question, what does the donor expect? But we should really switch that question and we should ask, what does the donor want? Right? How can we provide unreasonable hospitality? How can we go past what they expect and give them what they really want, right? What they need and what they want, what would make them happy. And that, if you can start there, if you can start from that standpoint of ready to provide that, excessive level of hospitality to your donors and really to all your partners, that forms the basis of a relationship that can start to get past those exclusivity agreements or those reluctances to work with what might be an unknown entity of a food recovery organization. So starting with what the donor wants, I just want to say that our designer who makes all of our beautiful slide decks is out this week. So she did a lot of this, but some of them you will see my hand because I don't think she would ever put a picture of somebody vomiting on a slide. But donors really do want to avoid people getting sick, right? I mean, they that would be a nightmare, somebody getting sick from the food that they donate, right? So they really are thinking about food safety. They want that food to arrive at the destination wholesome and ready to eat. So food safety is the first thing that is going to be on the minds of the donors. And we know that a lot of times when you think about, a big organization that is maybe trying to dissuade donors from working with food recovery organizations, food safety is what they're going to ding us on, right? Food safety is what they're going to come back and say, well, if you really want food safety, you want to go with our operations because we're a 900-pound gorilla and we have all this experience and expertise. So you need to prepare to prove to the donors that you are as safe as any other organization. So first, preparation. You want to make sure that you are ready to create those protocols. Next slide, Stona. You want to make sure that your whole staff is trained, right? Or your whole operations staff is trained, ServeSafe or some other program. There's other food safety programs, but that you're trained in food safety, that you understand what it takes to create a plan that protects the integrity of the food that you're operating, right? One that is based on and the SOPs that are based on food safety protocols. Next. And you want to know, like, what are you rescuing? When you talk to a donor, what kind of food are they going to have? And know the difference between food that does require time and temperature control for safety and food that does not require time and temperature control for safety. And make sure that if they have food that is requires time and temperature controlled for safety, that you're acknowledging that and that you have a plan and an SOP for that, right? That you're not throwing raw chicken into the back of an unrefrigerated box truck and driving around for a couple hours, right? They want to know that you understand that that's wrong and that your SOPs indicate that that is not what you're going to do. And as I was saying, create your protocols based on food type. So if it's TCS, you need to have a set of standards that protects that. If it's not, you still need to worry about food safety, especially if you're using volunteers, right? So you want to make sure that, for example, this is like obvious and silly, right? Nobody would put food next to a drum of toxic waste, but somebody might put it in their trunk with paint or turpentine or something like that. And so making sure that even if it's not TCS, you have food safety protocols in place, and you are protecting that food from their door to where it's being dropped off. For food that is TCS, I just want to remind folks here that time is part of the T. It's not just temperature, it's time or temperature control for safety. So if you can show that your food is getting from point A to point B in 15 minutes, that is a food safety control, right? So anything TCS can be controlled by using time as a factor. And you think about bringing your groceries home from the store. Maybe if you live in Arizona and it's 110 degrees and you've got to go 30 minutes from, door to door, you might have passive temperature controls in your car. But for most of us, we put our groceries in the car. There's no extra temperature control. We drive home and that's what we eat every day. And so, if we're doing food rescue, we can use time effectively in the same way. But that has to be communicated and included in your protocols, that you understand that and are utilizing time as that control and how you're protecting that. Know your distribution partners. Who understands how to keep TCS food safe? Not every donor is going to think to ask where the food is going, but some will. And you need to be able to tell them that the food is going to a home, a recipient, a distributor, where they will also protect the integrity of the food. You can train partners. I know a lot of us, because of the nature of food recovery, work with non-traditional organizations, housing sites, Head Start programs, senior centers, just to know that somebody there has food safety training, or that you've provided them with food safety training and they have that knowledge, gives those donors the comfort that they need. It's super easy to do. And again, it acknowledges the donor's concerns and shows that you're taking them seriously before they even have to ask about it. Okay. So then second is communication. You've done all that work, right? Talk about it. Donors should not have to ask. And this is key. If they have to ask you about food safety, then they are going to, at least, in their mind, there's that little question, well, why am I having to ask about this? Are they not taking it seriously? How come they're not telling me how they're keeping my donation safe right off the bat? That should be front and center. You should be proud of that. You should be advertising that. Next. Brag about your team being food safety certified. Put that on your donor one pagers. Make sure they know that every single person on your staff, or at least those that are responsible for the operations, understand what happens if you put raw chicken over bread, if you stack it that way, or if you leave food out for 6 hours, or if cantaloupe is past its date. So if you don't know why all of those things are scary, then you need to you need to bone up on your food safety training, because your donors do, and those are the things they're going to worry about. Create that food safety one pager for those prospective donors. That should be in your introduction material, right? That can inspire that confidence. They know when they work with somebody that's been sanctioned by Feeding America. And again, this is that 900-pound gorilla, right? How are we getting around that? They have faith that if it's a Feeding America organization, all of this is covered. They don't have to ask about it. But they don't know that about food recovery. They don't know that about us. Eventually, our donors come to trust us, but right off the bat, they may not know that. So you really want to be proactive about telling them. And then, of course, demonstrate your success with pilots and graduated partnerships. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Next. So demonstrations. If they're not sure If they're not feeling super confident, or they're nervous about committing to you, or they seem, a little bit cautious about what they want to donate to you, offer a limited pilot. Show them what you can do. A demonstration project, a pilot project, is the best way to get reluctant donors on board. Um, you got to make sure you're successful in the pilot program, because if you're not, obviously they're not going to sign on. But I'm sure you will be, right? You do all the prep work in advance, and then you launch a pilot. If you have a reluctant donor, try getting them to agree to donate from one location, 1 day a week, for an amount of time, and then you can go back to them and you can say, how did you feel about that, right? Um, you can overcome a lot of objections with that. And I want to say, I should have said this before, but I was taking a sip of my drink. Don't promise to do what you're not confident you can do. So keep that pilot really limited to what you can do, and or to a step that you're confident that you can take. Step yourself up as well, and that's a great way to develop a robust program, is to start in those small steps. And then foster that relationship. So this is something that is often overlooked, especially when you think about working with like a grocery store chain, right? You get the manager on board, and you set up the rescues and you start moving forward. Um, it really is helpful if you have access to get to know their food safety leader and start to talk to them and show them what your protocols are, show them that you understand, and listen to what their concerns are to make sure that you're actually ticking all the boxes they're really concerned about. You'll find that this is not only a way to create a good, strong partnership, but to create a good, strong, long-term relationship. We had in Allegheny County, I've told the story before, so I won't say stop me if you've heard it, because you can't. But we had our local health department decide a couple years ago that they wanted to be helpful to food rescue, and they changed the regulations that said recovered food had to be uh, the temperature had to be controlled passively. So you had to put in a cooler or something, right? The the head of food safety at Giant Eagle, our local grocery store, I mean, it's not local, it's a regional, right? Came out and testified for us that we didn't need to do that, that they had confidence in our time controls on TCS food. So you want that type of relationship. You want that food safety manager to go to another donor and talk to them and say, yeah, we've had great relationships with them. You want them to be your friend. I've presented at conferences, local conferences, based on, Giant Eagle wanting us to talk about our program. So really hear what their concerns are, demonstrate how you're meeting their concerns and alleviating, any worry that they have, and get to know them. Foster that relationship. That will carry you a long way. And it can help grow the relationship too. So, like I said, we know that Giant Eagle manager, food safety manager really well. So when we wanted to start rescuing from their convenience stores, their Get-Go's, which is all TCS food, like grab and go sandwiches and salads, they were on board from the jump because they already knew us, and we had that strong and ongoing relationship with their food safety person. Next. Um, and again, create that trust over time. So start with that pilot so that you can demonstrate that you're reliable. Be able to provide them with the data. We were able to show them, the time in transit for TCS food, and create that trust for that really strong relationship. All right, next. So food safety is really important, and it's certainly what they want, but you could argue it's what they need too, right? It's an imperative. It is the minimum standard for building that relationship, is that food safety, because all of these businesses, we've heard the stories, were done in, whatever happened to Chi-Chi's, went bankrupt because of or face a big scandal because they had a food safety crisis. And this isn't even to do with food rescue. This is just in general in their operations. So, meeting food safety standards is a must have. Next. So if that's what the donor wants, maybe we want to say, what is the question? Or if that's what the donor needs, we want to switch to does the donor want? Um, what are the things that are maybe less imperative? Maybe they will begrudgingly agree to a partnership without meeting these standards because their corporate office told them. But these are the things that they want that will make the partnership, make the relationship go better. Things like seamless process operationally, no additional labor or minimal additional labor to their staff, saving money, and showing the community that they support them. These are the things that will drive that program beyond we're meeting this requirement because our corporate office told us to, and turn it into we really love this partnership. This is exactly what we want. We're gonna, be a booster for this org. So how do you do that? So it starts with the onboarding process. It starts before you even rescue the first piece of food. It starts really even before they agree to donate to you. Do some research, identify the donors you have interested in, and then look at what they have to donate, what their goals are, find out about the company. Next slide. I suggest going in and talking to all of the team members, not just the company leaders, and really listen. And then go back to that idea of unreasonable hospitality and build that relationships around the donor. And to do that, you need to go in and you need to listen. One of the great things that Steve Dietz, if you've ever, I think half the world knows Steve Dietz, right, with Food Donation Connection. What he does when he goes into a new donor is he goes and talks to the people on the floor. He goes into the produce section, for example, and talks to the guy that's stocking the shelves and finds out what they think of their current donation program, if they have one, or what are their pain points, or how do they feel about a potential donation program. So he knows, from like the bottom to the top of the chain in an organization, what are their pain points. Next slide. So there's that communication. You're listening to them, you're discussing with them what works, what doesn't work. You're asking about them about their operational processes. Next slide. And you're identifying what the bottlenecks and the pain points are for that donor. And then take a look and see what the operational pain points and bottlenecks might be for your volunteers and your team as well. Think about if you were to give that donor everything they want in a donation program, what would that mean for your volunteers? What would that mean for your team? And then try to create an SOP that makes everyone feel like a collaborator, that makes everyone feel like they were heard and listened to. So if a grocery store, for example, uh, is insisting that a volunteer go through the back door, but then you find out that the receiving manager hates that because they're really busy, find out if there's a better time for that receiving manager so that your volunteer can still go through the back door. If the site is really hard to access for the volunteers, try to figure out a way to make that accessible for the volunteers. And I know that a lot of these things are sort of no-brainers, right, when you think about them separately, but when you think about how are you going to create an SOP for donors, for identifying donors, for bringing on new donors, all of this stuff should be built into your SOP for building that donor program. Because that is that unreasonable hospitality. Everybody feels like they are the superstar of that relationship. That donor does not have to know that you've changed things around to make your volunteers happy. They should feel like, wow, you're doing exactly what they want you to do, right? Your volunteers should feel like, this is a great and, easy to manage rescue. And this is something that makes them feel really good. So kind of center everybody in creating those protocols. And then going back to this idea, of demonstration of setting goals and follow up on them. And if that means uh, uh, a graduated implementation, if that means pilot programs, then that is the best thing you can do. And I'm going to tell you something that I did that I would never recommend doing is early days. We didn't know any better. And we got Giant Eagle to agree to donate to us, as well as a bagel company, Brugger's. And we decided that we were going to start, you're going to laugh. We were going to start like 10 Brugger's and 5 Giant Eagles all in 1 week. That's insanity. That was doomed to fail. I mean, that was a disaster. Don't do that. You absolutely pick your battles. You know, if they want 5 stores coming on this week, you got to talk them down from that, because everybody, unless your organization is way more capable and savvy than I was at that time, you're going to fail at that, and everybody's going to be unhappy. Help them understand that a graduated implementation is better for everybody. Even if you've gotten past the pilot, everybody's on board. A lot of grocery stores are like, okay, so we have 37 stores and we want 7 day a week pickup at all of them. That's not going to work. You gotta ramp that up a little bit more slowly. Um, and it's important to to walk them through that and get them to buy into that, because a lot of these grocery stores, especially if you're somewhere like California, or New York or Massachusetts, that has these expectations of zero waste, or high diversion rates, they're going to want to go really fast. And you want to go as fast as you can, but you don't want to go so fast that you fail and things crash and burn. Next slide. Because missed pickups in a donation program will sink it. You can get away with a couple, but if you really have a low success rate or a high miss rate, especially at one particular donor, it will fail. We all know that's what drives them crazy. They want reliability. If you don't show up when you said you're going to show up, that is a death knell for donation. And not only does that ruin it for you at that store, but they will be skeptical of donation programs forevermore until somebody can come in and convince them to try again. And we all know this because we've all been on the other end of that conversation where a store has had a bad experience and we've had to talk them into it. So just make sure that you are reliable and that you're going at a pace that you can manage. And then finally, execution. Execution is about showing up over time, right? You want to make it part of their culture, something that they want to do. You want to make sure that you are fostering that relationship from day 1 through day 10,000. Next slide. And you do that again. Show up, don't miss rescues. And if you can't show up, if you have to miss a rescue, communicate. A lot of stores, they won't care if your volunteer can't show up that day, as long as somebody shows up the next day, and as long as they know and they're not sitting there waiting. It's when they don't have that communication they get really frustrated. Provide them reports and be transparent with your data. Make sure that you're showing them your success and their success. This is something that, every single layer of the, I want to call it the food chain, but of management at a donor, can take those reports and brag to the next level up. So, your produce manager can brag to the store manager. The store manager can brag to the regional manager. The regional manager can brag to corporate, right? So make sure they have that data, and they get sort of that regular report back on how things are going. And then regularly assess and adjust. Uh, Take a look at how your program is doing over time. Talk to the folks in the store, go back to the produce manager, go back to the guy that's stocking the shelves and ask them how they feel about it. You may hear from the store manager that everything's going great, but if the produce manager hates it and it really disrupts their day, it's not going to be as successful as the program would be if they're happy with it. So just make sure that you're constantly sort of talking to folks and evaluating how things are going. So that is the final word on the donors. Again, it's about building that SOP. If you are already rescuing food, you probably know all of this, but how do you turn that into a replicable process for your next hire, for the next person that runs the organization? So it's taking those steps and building those out, and then making sure that you're implementing them over time and with consistency. So we'll turn to Q&A here in a second. I did want to just mention our next, go back one. Our next webinar is about maximizing your board's potential. I'm really excited for this one. We have some guest speakers. Deb Desjardins, I hope I pronounced that right, is amazing. She has worked with nonprofit organizations for like 30 years and just is really great at thinking about how to build and engage a board. John Meck is actually on our board, and he is one of our most excited and enthusiastic members and has some great ideas on how to get board members involved. And then Heather Stewart from Kentucky Harvest has had really amazing success with her board. So it should be a really good panel. And then we are also launching a 6-part series on how to start a food rescue. Probably most of you on this call don't need this, but if you know anybody that's interested in starting a food rescue, let them know that we're going to have like I said, a 6-part series from soup to nuts on what you need to know to get food rescue up and running in your community. And so with that, I will go over to Q&A. Okay. So the first question, could you go into more depth about how you find the most success in communicating with donors that are reluctant to donate? For example, do you find more success in comprehensive emails, phone calls, or visiting potential donors in person? How does the communication typically go? Some of that depends on what type of donor we're talking about. You want to make sure that you're talking to decision makers for starters. Going in and pitching to the produce manager at a grocery store chain probably isn't going to get you anywhere. So you want to find the decision maker. I really, the way I found success with working with donors is I listen to them. And I watch them. I actually just had this conversation with somebody today about how, I give them sort of the menu of reasons why they should donate and why donation is good for them, and then watch to see, you'll see their body language changes, or they suddenly start to pay attention more, or they relax a little, and you know when you've hit that sweet spot, the thing they care about, so you can hone in on that. Also ask them what their objections are. A lot of them are going to say things like, well, we already donate. Well, okay, don't take that as a definitive. What do you mean you already donate? Do you donate 7 days a week? What do you donate? Is it just bread? A lot of grocery stores just donate bread. Could you donate more? Could you donate produce? Non-TCS produce. A lot of stores are not donating non-TCS produce, which is such an easy low bar. And that's a really great entry point to help them reduce their waste footprint, meet sustainability goals. That's a great pilot program to demonstrate the feasibility of it. And then a lot of them they've been hurt before. They have trust issues. They've have a lot of times, we find this in our area, and I know I've heard this from other folks, where a food pantry will be assigned to pick up from a grocery store on Saturdays, and it's almost always just bakery, right? That food pantry is relying on their volunteers, and it's not the main thing they do. Is pick up that food to distribute. They have other sources of food, so they may not show up. They are oftentimes very inconsistent, and so that's what a lot of donors think about when you say you want to have want them to donate food. Is they think about that inconsistent once a week bread pickup, which really is not what they need, especially as sustainability goals start to become something that is trickling downwards. The responsibility to fulfill them is trickling downwards. They need somebody that can rescue 7 days a week and more than just bread. And somebody that's going to show up consistently. So, listen to them and kind of look for that in. What is it that is interesting to them? What is it that is their biggest objection? Don't take that no for an answer. Overcome their objections, because almost all the time their objections are based on a misunderstanding of what it is you're proposing. Tips for helping food donors with packaging and labeling for TCS food. So I assume you mean like a caterer or somebody that's donating prepared food that they might be putting in a hotel pan. Um, you can actually order stickers on the internet. Of course, where else would you order them? Oh my God, I sound like I'm 200 years old. You can order it off the World Wide Web. You can order stickers that can just they can throw on the pan that puts allergen information, like check boxes, just check fish, nuts, soy, the typical allergens, and the date it was prepared. That is super easy. It's a low bar. They generally have to do that anyway when they're storing leftovers. They've got to label food. They don't put things in the refrigerator unlabeled, right? So it is not a super extra step for them. We had some, we have in the past, and actually, I don't know if we still do this, Becca, you could probably answer this. We've had bespoke stickers made that had our logo on it. So that is something nice that you can do that helps them understand why they're labeling the food and where it's going. Um, and then also going in and again, talking to the folks that are doing the packaging of the food. This is a manager will often commit to something that they don't have any part in making happen. And they may not communicate to the folks that are doing the work why they're doing that extra work or what it's for. Go in and talk to them, tell them the impact it's going to have, find out what their pain points are, see if there's any way that you can help them, adjust processes and procedures to make it better for them. Involve them in that process and that conversation. All right, can you talk about what you would include on the donor one pager? And Becca, who's our current brilliant donor partner manager, is dropping tips in there as well. Yeah, so a donor one pager, it so it depends on the purpose, right? There's a couple different points at which you would give a donor information. I generally we would give them more of a packet when we meet with them. We might have a one pager on food safety, including what we take and what we don't take, uh, and how we keep food safe, what our standards are, what our protocols are. You might have a one pager on how the relationship would work. Are you scheduling weekly rescues? Is it an on call? Are they letting you know when they have something? How would they do that? That sort of information. And then some top bullet points about why they should be doing this. What's the impact? If you can create one that has relevant, pictures on it, make it pretty, pictures of people receiving food or organizations receiving food, a little bit about your organization's track record. So I know pounds don't necessarily equal impact, but if you can tell them that you've rescued X number of pounds this year or last year or all time, that shows your experience, right? That gives them some faith that you have done this before, with no mishaps. And so that can help inspire that confidence. If you're new though, and you don't have those numbers, it's okay. Then you just need to have the SOP to show them, that you know what you're doing. So, this is how we keep food safe, right? These are our standards. This is how we protect your food. This is what we do for you. Those sorts of things. And then to add, because I said there were different types of one pagers you would need. You can give them a one pager to hang in the storeroom or to put in the kitchen, or just a quick reference on your org. So how to contact you, if they have extra donations, how to contact you if there's a problem or no one shows up, um, you know, quick bullet points of what you take and what you don't take, that sort of information, how things should be packaged, just really handy dandy info for anybody that walks into that kitchen and wants to donate food. Um, I've had donors sometimes give products that are beyond what should be consumed by someone. What would you say to them to keep the relationship positive? Rather, what is the most polite way you could reject the donation? That is a great question. That is always a sticky one. You want you want to work with the donor at a couple of different levels. So one, at the top level, make sure that they have internal procedures that are helping staff understand what they can donate. And if they don't, you can provide that to them. Um, then at the lower level, you want to work with the staff to make sure they understand. A lot of times when a somebody who's preparing the donation gives you something like that, it's because they're not sure what to do and they don't want to throw away food if it could be used. Um, so they kind of err on the side of caution. That's what happens a lot of time. I mean, some people don't care and they throw in garbage, but most of the time, somebody just isn't sure. So we use really user-friendly tips like the 80-20 rule. If 80% of it is usable, then it's donatable. If less than 80% of it is not usable, then that's a compost item. So if you have a bag of oranges and one is moldy, then that's okay. But if 10 out of 12 are moldy, then no go. And then also another one that's really user-friendly is if this was in your fridge, would you eat it? Just have them use that. That is the best and quickest rule of thumb is if this was in your fridge, would you eat it? Would you go to the trouble of cutting out the bad spot? Or is it going to take so much time? It's not worth it. And that's a really easy way for folks to understand. And uh, just a friendly reminder like, hey, I saw you donated something that was outside the parameters of what we accept. Just as a reminder, here's a quick reference guide on what we take and what we don't take. Um, you might find donors that want you to take everything, no questions asked. That's up to you whether you want to do that. If you can do it, if you have a outlet for compost, then that's a great way to help a donor. But I do, in those situations, suggest that you track what's compost and what's not compost. So by let's say by weight or by percentage. So you can go back to them and say, hey, 50% of what you donated to us was compost. And we're going to report it back to you as such. Uh, you know, maybe you need to think about donating earlier in the process. In that case, can we review how you're and when you're making the decision to donate food so that that doesn't happen. And the other reason you want to track that is because you don't want to report that you're rescuing 1 million pounds of food if 500,000 pounds of it was compost. You want to say you've rescued 500,000 pounds of food and helped divert 500 pounds of inedible food to the compost, to a recycler. Um, that is, yeah, that's what I would do. Does that help? Um, all right, that was the last question on here. Were there any questions that showed up in chat?
There were not actually.
Okay. So are there any other questions before we finish up for the day? Oh, and Becca dropped, I'm just going to read this out loud in case anyone missed it. Becca dropped a great tip into the chat, which is that if you work with a big donor like Gordon Foods, Cisco, US Foods, a lot of them have food packaging, which they can give you as an in-kind donation. Sometimes it's actually surplus, or the package was damaged and they'll just give that to you as part of a donation. But you can also ask for that as an in-kind donation, which can help, especially if you've got like a smaller donor that needs repackaging materials that can help. This is a question from Katie at La Soup. Hi, Katie. Do you all measure rescued food versus food that might be a more traditional donation? I'm not sure oh, you mean like food drive, non-rescued. Um, so I will tell you that at 412 Food Rescue at our flagship, we don't really get or take new food. So that's not an issue. Everything is rescued. We don't do like canned food drives or anything like that. Um, I believe, and if anyone wants to drop in here, if anyone has an answer from their organization, that are organizations that do purchase food or do get food donated, like that do can drives, for example, they do note what is rescued versus what is new. Does that answer your question, Katie? We're more, what comes up more for us is tracking when food goes to people versus animals versus compost. Sometimes we get food that just like was asked isn't quite fit for human consumption. And so we do have some animal nonprofits that we work with. And then we also have some composters and biodigesters that we work with that we can responsibly dispose of the food. All right. So I don't think I thought I saw a note about not having a link for the webinar. Is that correct?
Yes. The Zoom link wasn't included in the calendar reminder slash invite. So we will be sure for next webinar that it is.
Yes. Okay. You will be getting an email. This will go out to everybody that registered or attended, within the next a couple days or a week. Karen's out, so we'll see. But, there will be a link in there to register for the next webinar. And it shows up on our social media and stuff. I apologize for not having that, right now, but it should hopefully be easy to find. And you know where to find me, Jen at foodrescuehero.org. So you can harass me if it doesn't show up and you want to register for our next webinar, because it's going to be a really, really good one. And I really urge everybody to attend that one. Um, okay, I see a comment from uh, Jamie, Rolling Harvest. Even with fresh produce, we have the ability to purchase and get donated. Each is recorded as such. Yeah, I think it's pretty standard for orgs to track what is recovered, what is donated or purchased new, fresh, and then what is sent to other locations. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. Stay warm. If you're in any of the areas that are getting hit by snow and cold, everybody go get yourself a cup of hot cocoa or coffee or something like that. Or if you're somewhere warm, you can just gloat and lord it over the rest of us. So thanks, everyone. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.